Sari-saring uri ng mga ilegal na pinutol na kahoy ang nasabat ng mga otoridad sa lalawigan ng Laguna.
Sa bahagi ng Mountain Province, tumambad ang mga pinutol na puno. Sa panibagong aerial survey nitong weekend, nadiskubre ang iba pang illegal logging site sa bahagi ng Bauco at Sagada Mountain Province.
But there's less than 10% of the forests left. Freshly cut logs are visible on the slopes and by the roadside, waiting to be smuggled out piece by piece and sold on the black market in defiance of a log ban.
Deforestation is a major concern, yet it is not discussed as often as it should be. Deforestation is caused by several human activities such as illegal logging, territorial expansion, building infrastructures, and creating furnitures from wood. It seems we see trees and forests as source of our physical needs and wants, but we do not give much credit to them for keeping us alive by providing what we actually need, the very air we breathe.
The Earth is said to have existed for around 4.5 billion years, and life on it have thrived for as long. While our ancestors are only thought to have existed for only around 6 million years, and civilization have only started around 6,000 years ago. If we convert the existence of life on Earth on a 24-hour clock, humans have only been present and active for far less than an hour. But we have already managed to do so much harm to it.
Good afternoon, sir. So yung first question is, what do you think are the effects of deforestation to all living and non-living components of the ecosystem?
Loss of habitat, especially for our wildlife, for example. They lose their homes, the birds, even the snakes and all these things. Especially in our forests, they lose their natural habitat, which may force them to move to another place as a habitat. Thereby, when they move, they'll be disrupting another ecosystem. Or it can also be very disruptive for them because it's not their natural habitat when they have to move somewhere else. So that's one. Another one is deforestation also is closely linked to the loss of water in the atmosphere, for example. Trees are very helpful when it comes to the water cycle. One of the ways we can transmit water to the atmosphere is through evaporation, and that's very common. However, another way is through what we call plant transpiration, wherein water gets transported to the atmosphere by the, kumbaga for like humans, we respire, we sweat. Also for plants, they have this called sweating, wherein they like water from the soil travels up to their trunks, to their leaves, and then water escapes the leaves to the atmosphere. Now, removing all these, deforestation also affects that water level in the atmosphere, thereby resulting to loss of rainfall, which will also lead to like other effects like root crop failure and also like what else? Droughts, for example, the loss of water here. A lack of water for land creatures like humans and animals. So yeah, it could be vast. So there are direct effects, but there are also indirect effects resulting from loss of water.
With all the effects, what major factor or factors do you think results to deforestation, and how do you think can we manage this?
Factors that lead to deforestation include, actually, one of the main factors that lead to deforestation is human activity. For example, logging, like wherein we chop trees to produce all these things we use, like paper, even for furniture and stuff like that. And also, we also cut trees to make way for like grazing animals. When you tend to like say cows, for example, or sheep, for them to have land to walk on, people tend to cut trees for them. So basically, they're both human activities resulting to loss of trees in the forest. But I think in the Philippines, I think the case in the Philippines is that illegal logging is a direct source of direct cause of deforestation. So one of the main things.
illegal or not, do you think that those who chop off trees for sake of industrialization should be held accountable? And if so, how can they be held accountable?
Also, I forgot to mention, we also cut trees for industrialization, like creating like buildings and all these things. Now, illegal or not, do I think they have to be held accountable? Of course. I think the fair rule is, for every tree you cut down, you have to replace it somehow. Maybe one or two. I don't know what the rule is. But at least if you cut down something, be sure to replace it. Now, will they be held accountable? Yes, and I think it's through that way. By, again, before building something, for example, you also have to acquire necessary permits in order to proceed with your building, because one of the things they ask you, the government, is to actually be able to replace any natural resources you would be using or would be destroying because of what you're developing. So I think they should be held accountable in the sense that it must be ensured that whatever they remove from the environment will be replaced somehow.
That is related for deforestation. Do you think that it is effectively implemented?
I think implementation is one part of it, but at the same time, human response to the implemented laws is also another thing. I think if the government does its best in implementing rules, which I think the DENR is doing their best to do, I think if human beings don't respond very well to this, or if we allow certain things like corruption to let people do what they want with just money under the table without having to be held accountable for the trees they chop, for example, I think that's also a very bad thing. So I think before one side, another thing apart from implementation is that people must actually be responsible enough.
What many do not yet fully grasp is that deforestation as well as other human-caused dilemmas may lead to our very own demise. Lack of trees would result to weaker soils, which will then lead to soil erosion. It will also affect the animals that used to peacefully live in their natural habitats. Competition among species will greatly increase, which may then lead to extinction of many species and loss of balance in the ecosystem.
Deforestation also results to abnormal increase in greenhouse gases that increase the temperature of the earth. The increase in temperature that can also lead to extinction of species that cannot normally live in hot places.
Lack of trees and vegetation will lead to scarcity. The future generations will be put in jeopardy for the lack of basic needs from nature. All these effects of deforestation can already be felt in present time. Yet, all we can care about is where to build buildings and malls and condominiums. We label ourselves as the ones on top of every chain, the smart, intellectual, and powerful ones. Yet it seems that our very existence compromises the condition of most likely the only home that we have or will ever have. It appears that we might have become the asteroid that will end all life on Earth that our predecessors have long feared.